Since we're not in the classroom, I'm going to try to do my best to give you some good lessons, showing you some examples of what you're going to have to be able to do for homework. We have 2 lessons left in this unit, and then a review, and then a test at some point whenever we can. The first lesson we're going to do is going to be the sum and difference formulas. We're going to have these 6 formulas that are going to allow us to find the sum and the difference of an angle that is not on the unit circle. We're going to get exact values for these solutions. We're not going to do a decimal. We're going to have an exact value with square roots and numbers that we normally would not be able to get because we don't have the unit circle. All right, so our sum formulas. We're going to have the sine of 2 angles added together, the sine of u plus v. To calculate the sine of u plus v, we're going to do the sine of u cosine v plus cosine u sine v. The cosine of u plus v is going to be cosine u cosine v minus sine u sine v. And the tangent of u plus v is going to be the tangent of u plus tangent of v divided by 1 minus the tangent u tangent v. You're not going to have to memorize all of these. You are going to have to be comfortable with them because more than likely what's going to happen is on the test, I will give you these right here. And knowing enough, you're going to have to know that this top one is the sine of u plus v, the bottom one is the tangent of u plus v. I'm not going to tell you probably what they equal. You're going to get these formulas. You're going to have to be able to work with them that way. As we go through the lesson, at any point that you need to stop and do some work, if I'm moving too fast, if you don't have time to write down what you need to, pause the video, get yourself caught up, and then go from there. All right, now my difference formulas are going to be the sine of u minus v equals sine of u minus v equals the sine of u cosine v minus cosine u sine v. Cosine of u minus v is cosine u cosine v plus sine u sine v. And tangent of u minus v is tangent u minus tangent v divided by 1 plus tangent u tangent v. Real quick, I mean, they're just formulas. The difference between sine of u plus v and sine of u minus v is the sign in the middle. Sine of 2 angles added has a plus sign between them. Sine of 2 angles subtracted has a minus sign. Cosine is the opposite. U plus v is going to be a minus. U minus v is a plus. For tangent, you have the positive on the top, which makes a negative on the bottom for u plus v. And u minus v has a negative on the top and a positive on the bottom. Do what you got to do to know what the formulas are. And we're going to use these to find exact value answers that are not on the unit circle. All right, so first problem we're going to do is the sine of 15 degrees. What we have to figure out is I need to choose 2 angles that either add or subtract to give me 15 degrees, and they got to be good angles. We're going to pick 2 angles that are on the unit circle that either add or subtract to give me 15. All right, I'm going to have a second slide that we're going to open. All right, so I'm going to pick the angles 45 degrees minus 30 degrees because 45 minus 30 gives me my 15. If you wanted to do 60 degrees minus 45 degrees, you're still going to get the same answer. If you want to do, what's another one? We can go, well, there's bunches of them. I don't want to get into more than that. Any of these are going to get the same answer, but we're going to go with 45 minus 30. All right, from here, going back, the formula I'm going to use is the sine of u minus v equals the sine of u cosine of v minus cosine of u sine of v, where my u is going to be 45 degrees, my v is going to be 30 degrees. So I'm going to go the sine of 45 degrees times the cosine of 30 degrees minus the cosine of 45 degrees times the sine of 30 degrees, where everywhere I had a u, I put 45, my v's became 30s. Now I'm going to evaluate. Sine of 45 degrees, first quadrant, is square root of 2 over 2. Cosine of 30 degrees, I'm going to think pi over 6, which gives me square root of 3 over 2. Minus the cosine of 45 degrees, again, is square root of 2 over 2. The sine of 30 degrees is my pi over 6, and the sine is 1/2. So that's just knowing these basic sine and cosine of your good angles. Now I'm going to multiply these together, get square root of 6 over 4 minus square root of 2 over 4, which cleans up because of common denominators. Square root of 6 minus square root of 2 all over 4, and that's your final answer. All right, I'm going to back up because I forgot to move over and go back. Sine of u cosine v minus cosine u sine v. So sine of 45 cosine of 30 minus cosine of 45 sine of 30 based on my two angles. Sine of 45 is square root of 2 over 2. Cosine of 30 is square root of 3 over 2. Cosine of 45 is square root of 2 over 2. Sine of 30 is 1/2. Multiply, multiply, common denominators. And again, my answer is square root of 6 minus square root of 2 over 4. All these are our formulas that you have to be able to substitute into and do the math. All right, the second one. The tangent of 15 degrees, we're going to use, again, the tangent of 45 degrees minus 30 degrees. All right, we're going to use the same two angles to give me my 15, this time using the tangent. Going back, tangent of two angles subtracted, the tangent of u minus v equals the tangent of u minus the tangent of v over 1 plus tangent u times tangent v. Straight out of the formula. The second problem, we're going to use this formula here. Now I'm going to use the tangent of 15 degrees. We're going to plug into the formula, and we're going to make it work. I'm going to try to focus a little bit. All right, so I'm going to go the tangent of 45 degrees minus the tangent of 30 degrees over 1 plus the tangent of 45 degrees times the tangent of 30 degrees. Tangent of 45 degrees, I hope we know already, is 1, minus tangent of 30 is the tangent of pi over 6. Pi over 6 is going to be 1/2 divided by the square root of 3 over 2, which is square root of 3 over 3. We've done that, multiply by the reciprocal and clean it up. Square root of 3 over 3 divided by 1 plus 1 times square root of 3 over 3. Tangent of 45 is 1. Square root of 2 over 2 divided by square root of 2 over 2. Minus the tangent of 30 degrees, which is pi over 6, which is 1/2 over square root of 3 over 2, which is square root of 3 over 3. I fill in all those. Doing my math. 1 minus the square root of 3 over 3 divided by 1 plus the square root of 3 over 3. To clean this up, we have fractions and fractions and square roots in our denominator. The first thing I'm going to do is multiply by 1 by 3 over 3 to get rid of this denominator. So I'm going to distribute 3 minus the square root of 3, cancels out in the second one, divided by 3 plus the square root of 3. Distributing again. Now, because I have a square root in my denominator, we're going to multiply by the conjugate. Multiply by 3 minus the square root of 3 over 3 minus the square root of 3. Foil the top. 9 minus 3 square roots of 3 minus 3 square roots of 3 plus 3. I'm going to do my abbreviated FOIL on the bottom because it's a difference of squares. 9 minus 3, which is 12 minus 6 square roots of 3, adding like terms, over 6. Simplify all three of these, and I get 2 minus the square root of 3. All right, to verify that I'm right, I can do the tangent, make sure I'm in the right mode. Tangent of 15 is that decimal. 2 minus the square root of 3. 2 minus the square root of 3. And then what did I say? Tangent of 15. Give me the same answer, so I know I'm good. All right, it comes down to having the formula, picking the right formula, and being able to evaluate good values of trig functions. Being able to evaluate tangent of 45. And then once we get the tangent of 45 as 1 and fill all this in, it's being able to do the algebra behind it. Multiplying by 1 to get rid of the denominators, distributing. Multiplying by the conjugate to get rid of the square root in the bottom, foiling and abbreviated foiling, and cleaning it up. Today's lesson isn't the tough part. Today's lesson is fine, just knowing which formula to use. You just have to be able to be able to do the right math. All right, now we're going to do the cosine of 7 pi over 12. All right, so what we have to decide are two good angles, all for a unit circle, that have to give us 7 pi over 12. Looks like a bizarre angle, 7 pi over 12, that would struggle maybe finding two angles that add to it. But what we're going to use is we're going to take 7 pi over 12 apart into 3 pi over 12 plus 4 pi over 12. 3 pi over 12 plus 4 pi over 12 is my 7 pi over 12. And you may not see that to begin with, but when I take it apart that way, hopefully you do. So that's the cosine of 3 over 12, it's pi over 4, plus 4 over 12, which is pi over 3. Now I have two good angles that I can use to go into the formula. Going back to cosine of two angles added together, I'm going to go cosine u, cosine v, minus sine u, sine v. And that's the formula. Since I'm adding cosine, cosine, the opposite, minus sine, sine. So now I have the cosine of pi over 4, cosine of pi over 3, minus sine pi over 4, sine pi over 3. Plugging in, this is my u, and this is my v. Cosine of pi over 4 is square root 2 over 2. Cosine of pi over 3 is a half. Minus sine of pi over 4 is square root of 2 over 2. Sine of pi over 3, if this is a half, this has to be square root of 3 over 2. We have to be able to get to the point where we don't have to think too hard. Square root of 2 over 2 minus square root of 6 over 4, which is square root of 2 minus square root of 6 over 4. All of these answers are going to look something like this every time. Different signs, different places, but the same basic idea. So we took cosine of 7 pi over 12 and took 7 pi over 12 into 3 pi over 12 plus 4 pi over 12, which is a pi over 4 and a pi over 3. This may not be easy to see, but hopefully you see it once we do it. I plug in those values, I evaluate, I add like terms, and I get my solution. The next one, like I said, as we go through this, if there's something that's not making sense, pause it, rewind it, do what you got to do. I'm going to say it again at the end, but I'm going to be available. Let me pull up our class page, our Google Class page. I'm available from 9 to 10 every morning and 2 to 3 every afternoon during this break for however long it is. Email me. You can chat with me using Google. If you want to, you can do a Google Meet, M-E-E-T, where we can do a video chat back and forth, and you can show me, hold your paper up to the screen, let me look at your work, I can show you what my work would be, we can make it work back and forth, however you want to do it. If you just want to chat, you want to do an email, you want to do a video, however it works. If there's 2 or 3 of you, the guys that want to get together, we can do a bigger session. However you want to do it, however you want to make it work, we can do something to get ourselves through this. All right, so now we're going to do tangent. The tangent of 7 pi over 12, and we're still going to use the two same angles. The tangent of pi over 4 plus pi over 3, which are the two angles that we used up here, just taking it apart. All right, so for tangent, let's go back to the formula. This time we're adding the tangent of u plus the tangent of v, 1 minus tangent u, tangent v. So we're going to go to tangent of pi over 4 plus the tangent pi over 3 divided by 1 minus the tangent pi over 4 times tangent pi over 3. All right, can't forget to go back and forth. So we have tangent u plus tangent v minus tangent u, tangent v. Tangent of pi over 4 plus tangent of pi over 3 divided by 1 minus tangent pi over 4, tangent pi over 3. Tangent of pi over 4 is 1. Tangent of pi over 3 is square root of 3 over 2 divided by a half. Clean that up. Square root of 3 over 2 times 2 over 1 is just square root of 3. 1 minus 1 times square root of 3. So 1 plus the square root of 3 over 1 minus the square root of 3. Same idea. Multiply by the conjugate. We don't have a denominator we need to get rid of. 1 plus square root of 3 plus square root of 3 plus 3, foiling the top. And then 1 minus 3, foiling the bottom. Difference of squares, the middles are going to cancel. So that's 4 plus 2 square roots of 3 over negative 2. I'm going to take a negative 2 out and get negative 2 minus the square root of 3 as my final answer. You got to ignore the dog if you hear him barking. All right, so this answer is very similar to this answer. They're all going to look the same except where are plus minus signs. This answer here was very similar to that one, different order, different negative signs. All right, they'll all look like that. And you got to be able to plug in and do your basic math. All right, we got 2 more, or 3 more. Same idea. We're going to give you the sine of u is 5 over 13, but my u is between 0 and pi over 2. The cosine of v is negative 3/5, where my v is between pi over 2 and pi. I'm asking you to find the cosine of u minus v. So cosine of u minus v is going to be the cosine of u, cosine of v, plus sine u, sine v. From the beginning, setting this up, not even realizing what this is for, I know the sine of u is 5 over 13. I know the cosine of v is negative 3/5. I need the cosine of u and the sine of v to be able to find my answer. So we're going to draw our unit circle, or not a circle, we're going to draw an x, y-axis. My u value is in the first quadrant between 0 and pi over 2. So I'm going to draw some angle u. Doesn't have to be here, but it has to be in the first quadrant. And I know because of what we were told. Let me go back. I keep doing this. Got to get used to it. All right, let me start over a little bit. All right. I'm going to take the cosine of u minus v as my formula, where the cosine of v is negative 3/5, and the sine of u is 5 over 13. So that's 2 of the 4 pieces I need to find. All right, so like I said, I'm going to draw angle u in the first quadrant, quadrant 1, between 0 and pi over 2, and I know the sine is 5 over 13, so my opposite over hypotenuse is 5 over 13, which means Pythagorean theorem, special right triangle. My adjacent is 12, making the cosine of u 12 over 13, adjacent over hypotenuse. Now my v angle is between pi over 2 and pi, which means my v angle, erase that, make it better for you. My v is over here in the second quadrant. This is my angle v, and I know this time my adjacent is negative 3 and my hypotenuse is 5. Pythagorean theorem gives me my opposite being 4. giving me my sine of angle V to be 4/5. So let me go back up a step. This angle, this interval tells me where my angle is, and the sine of that angle tells me 2 of the 3 sides, 5/13. This one's in the second quadrant. Cosine of V is -3/5, and I get this one. Once I get that, I can pull out the other pieces. The sine of V is 4/5. The cosine of U is 12/13. Now I'm going to do my math. I multiply these two, -36/65 plus 20/65. 12/13 times -3/5. 5/13 times 4/5, multiply across top and the bottom. Add like terms, -16/65 is my solution. So what we found is we have an angle U and an angle V, where these two situations are true, and I want you to find me the cosine of those two angles subtracted. So I used my cosine formula, drew my triangles, found my other angles, and did my math. It's all following the formula. We knew where U and V were, so we were able to draw them and label the sides accordingly. All right. Hopefully we're getting some of this. If not, we'll be able to talk tomorrow afternoon, sometime Wednesday. This assignment is being assigned today and probably, I mean, it's not officially due since nothing's really due, but it needs to be done by the time you start the next lesson, which I'm going to post on Thursday morning. All right. Next, I'm asking you to verify the trig identity. The sine of 3 pi minus x equals the sine of x. All right, so we're going to verify it just like we've been doing with our verifying trig identities. Probably on Wednesday, I'm going to post a quiz that we should have taken to give you an idea of what it would have looked like, and we'll see how things work out and when we'll take that. We will not be doing any graded work online. I will be giving you assignments, expecting you to do them, expecting you to know what's going on. But we'll figure out graded assignments later. All right, so for this one, we're taking the sine of two angles subtracted. So I'm going to go the sine of U, cosine of V, minus the cosine of U, sine of V. And that has to equal the sine of x, where my U and my V are 3 pi and x. So I'm going to go the sine of 3 pi, cosine of x, minus the cosine of 3 pi, sine of x. And it has to equal the sine of x. I'm just using my formula, and I'm trying to make this left side turn into that. All right, from this step, all I can do is evaluate these. So 3 pi is 1, 2, 3 pi. The ordered pair -1, 0. So the sine over here is 0, minus the cosine. So I have 0 times the cosine of x, because I don't know what x is, which is 0. -1 is a +1. Sine of x, and that gives me the sine of x I needed. So just like our previous two sections, I just have to verify that these are true, and when it's the sine of two angles subtracted, I use this formula. We cannot say this is the sine of 3 pi minus the sine of x. It does not work that way, because that's not the formula. This is the difference of two angles, so we have to go back to the beginning and use that formula. Make sure you contact me, contact somebody if you're not understanding what we're doing. I know we're doing it quick, but hopefully you're slowing it down and maybe doing some of the works before I write it up here. All right, last problem. We're going to solve. All right, so we have the sine of x plus pi over 6 minus the sine of x minus pi over 6 equals 1/2. We're going to need to do our sum and difference formulas. We're going to have to do it twice. Once with the sign plus and one with the sign minus. Clean it up, and hopefully it sets up good that I'm going to be able to solve with it equal to 1/2. So the sine of x plus pi over 6 minus the sine of x minus pi over 6 equals a half. So this one, sine of u cosine of v plus sine u or cosine u sine v minus sine u cosine v minus cosine u sine v. Those are the two formulas I'm going to use, using these as my u's and my v's. Sine of x cosine of pi over 6 plus cosine of x sine of pi over 6 minus sine x cosine pi over 6 minus cosine x sine of pi over 6. And that all has to equal that half. Long formula, long work, but still not that bad, because we need to evaluate the ones that have angles. So I'm going to go sine of x, cosine of pi over 6 is the square root of 3 over 2. Sine of pi over 6 is a half, minus sine of x times cosine of pi over 6 is the square root of 3 over 2, minus the cosine of x times the sine of pi over 6, which is a half. Now, we're going to distribute this negative sign. So I'm going to go put my coefficients in the front. Minus square root of 3 over 2 sine x minus minus is a plus 1/2 cosine x. So I move my coefficients to the front and distribute the negative. So I have a square root of 3 over 2 sine x minus the square root of 3 over 2 sine x disappear. A half a cosine plus a half a cosine is a full cosine, and I keep bringing down that equal to a half. Whew. A lot of little things, nothing crazy. Being able to do the sine of pi over 6 and not thinking about it is the important part. So now, between 0 and 2 pi, cosine is my x value. Cosine's positive in the first and the fourth. My ordered pair is going to be a 1/2 comma something, which tells me it's a pi over 3. So my x is going to be pi over 3 in the first and 5 pi over 3 in the fourth. It's all about knowing the formulas and being comfortable with them, and being able to evaluate sine and cosine tangent of our good unit circle values. All right, that's the first lesson we need to do. All right. This assignment needs to be done, ideally before you do the next one, which the next lesson will be put out on Thursday morning. If you need help, send me an email at any time and I'll answer it when I can. If you want help or you want to talk back and forth, 9 to 10 o'clock in the morning, 2 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, send me an email, chat with me on Google Chats or Google Messenger, whatever they call it. Google Hangout, I think is what they officially call it. Or we can set up a Google Meet, which would be a video back and forth, and we can probably invite more than one person or get a whole bunch of people and we can ask questions that way. And this is all probably new for a lot of us, and we will make it work somehow. All right, so this is your assignment. It's on the classroom. Let me know what I can do to help you out. If it gets to be a lot, call a friend, see if they can help out. There may be something on the MC Schools learning plan that they gave out for pre-calculus. Just make sure you're in the right section. We're doing the sum and difference formulas. Look it up on the Khan Academy. Do searches. Do whatever you got to do. We just got to get through this one way or another. It's not the ideal situation, but we can make it work. All right. I will send another message out with a new lesson on Thursday morning. Enjoy your time off.